She screamed, "You can't touch that water!" and slapped a red notice on my gate as the police lights flashed behind her. I didn't even blink. Because that lake behind my house, it wasn't HOA property. It was mine. She kept yelling, telling the cops I was stealing community water, pointing at my small pump like I was some criminal. Neighbors came out, phones up, whispers spreading fast. She smiled like she had already won. Then the cop asked her one simple question. "Ma'am, can you show proof this lake belongs to the HOA? Her face froze for half a second, but she recovered quick, waving a stack of papers and saying, "Everyone knows this is HOA land." I stayed quiet, hands in my pockets, heart steady, because this wasn't just any lake. 2 months ago, my uncle passed away and left me something nobody here bothered to check. As Karen kept talking, louder and louder, the cop turned to me and said, "Sir, do you have any documents?" I looked at Karen, then at the lake, then back at the cop and said calmly, "Yeah, the original water rights, all 2,000 acres of it." The crowd went silent. Even the wind felt like it stopped. And that's when Karen laughed and said the line she would regret for the rest of her life. "That's impossible." She laughed too loud, like she wanted everyone to hear it. "You're lying," she said, stepping closer, pointing at my chest. "People like you don't own lakes." The cop looked uncomfortable now, shifting his weight, while Karen pulled out her phone and made a call right there. "Send the HOA security," she said. "This man is trespassing and stealing resources." That word, stealing, hit hard. My daughter was watching from the porch, holding her backpack tight, eyes wide. Karen noticed and smirked. "Maybe Child Services should hear about this too," she added softly, like a threat meant only for me. That was the moment the tow truck rolled in. Not for her, for my truck. HOA security jumped out, slapped a boot on my wheel, and started hooking it up like it was routine. Neighbors gasped. Someone whispered, "That's his only car." I felt my jaw tighten, but I stayed calm. I took out my phone, not to argue, not to shout, but to record. Karen leaned in and whispered, "This is what happens when you don't know your place." I looked at her and said quietly, "You sure you want all of this on camera?" She waved me off. "Post it. No one will believe you?" What she didn't know was that the papers in my house weren't copies. They were originals, and the name on them wasn't just mine. The tow truck pulled away with my truck, and Karen clapped once like it was a show just for her. "See?" she said to the crowd. "HOA law." The cop avoided my eyes. I walked my daughter inside, closed the door, and told her to call her mom. My wife didn't panic. She never does. She just said, "Don't say another word to them." When I came back out, Karen had gone further. She ordered HOA security to chain the small dock by the lake. "No access," she announced. "Effective now." That dock was older than the HOA itself, older than her house, older than her attitude. I slowly unlocked my front door again and brought out a thin brown folder. Not flashy, not thick, just quiet power. Karen rolled her eyes. "More fake papers?" she said. I handed the folder to the cop. He flipped one page, then another, then stopped breathing for a moment. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "this document predates the HOA by 37 years. Karen snapped. "That means nothing." The cop looked up at her and said, "It means the water rights were never transferred." The crowd started murmuring. Karen's voice cracked just a little as she said, "Call county enforcement." I smiled for the first time and said, "Already did." Because while she was busy stealing my truck, the county water authority was already on their way. Karen's smile faded when the black county trucks rolled in, dust rising behind them. She tried to take control, waving her arms, talking fast, telling them the same story she told everyone else. One of the county officers didn't even let her finish. He walked straight to me and asked, "Are you the heir?" I nodded. Karen snapped, "He's manipulating you." The HOA manages this lake. The officer opened a tablet and turned the screen toward her. "This lake isn't managed," he said. "It's privately controlled water." Her face went pale. She tried one last move. She accused me of damaging the environment, said my pump was illegal, said I was draining water from families. The officer walked down to the lake, checked the pump, and came back shaking his head. "This system is approved," he said. "Signed off by federal engineers." That's when Karen lost it. She screamed that I was ruining the community, that people like me always find loopholes. A neighbor shouted back, "Then why didn't you check before harassing him?" Karen spun around, furious. She didn't notice the officer stepping closer until he said, "Ma'am, you've interfered with protected water access." Her voice dropped. "Protected by who?" The officer looked at her and said, "By the same country you keep claiming rules from." I crossed my arms and added softly, "And I haven't even shown them the video yet." The officer asked to see the video, and Karen suddenly found her voice again. "That footage is fake," she said fast. "He edits things. He's been planning this." I tapped my phone and handed it over. No cuts, no tricks. Just her ordering the tow, threatening my kid, chaining the dock. The crowd leaned in as the sound played out loud. Every word she said came back to haunt her. One neighbor whispered, "She said that?" Another shook his head. The officer paused the video and looked at Karen. "You impersonated authority," he said. "You ordered a tow without legal standing." Karen tried to step back, but another officer was already behind her. She laughed nervously. "This is a misunderstanding." That's when the tow truck came back. "Same driver. Different mood?" He walked straight to the officer and said, "HOA told us to grab the truck. No paperwork." The officer nodded slowly. "You're free to go," he told the driver, then turned to Karen. "You're not." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I watched as they removed the chain from the dock. The lake was quiet again. One officer handed me my keys back and said, "Your truck will be returned tonight." Karen looked at me, eyes full of anger and fear, and said, "This isn't over." I leaned in just enough and replied, "You're right. Now it's public." By sunset, half the neighborhood was standing near the lake. Phones out, live streams rolling. Karen tried to walk away, but the officers stopped her. One of them read out the charges slowly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Trespassing, false reports, abuse of authority. Every word landed like a hammer. She kept shaking her head, whispering that the board would fix this. That's when another car pulled up. A man in a suit stepped out, calm, serious. He looked at Karen and said, "I represent the insurance carrier for the HOA." Her knees almost gave out. He turned to the crowd and said, "Due to unlawful actions taken today, coverage is suspended effective immediately." Gasps spread. Karen shouted, "You can't do that!" He didn't raise his voice. "We just did." He then looked at me and asked, "Are you planning to file a claim?" I thought about my daughter, my truck, the threats. I nodded. "Yes." Karen screamed that I was destroying the community. A neighbor answered her, "You already did." The officer clicked the cuffs. As Karen was led away, she locked eyes with me. I didn't smile. "I just said the truth. I didn't inherit just water rights. I inherited responsibility." The next morning, the story was everywhere. Local news vans lined the street. Drones hovered over the lake, and reporters kept asking the same question. How did the HOA miss this? Karen was released by noon, but she wasn't in charge anymore. The board voted her out in an emergency meeting, and her access was cut off on the spot. Then the real damage showed up. Without insurance, the HOA froze all projects. Fines, lawsuits, and refunds stacked up fast. Neighbors who once stayed quiet started speaking up. One by one, they shared stories about threats, fake notices, and fear. I opened the lake access the way it was meant to be, not as a favor. As a right, I installed clear signs with simple words, nothing fancy. Private water, protected rights, respect required. A county official came by and shook my hand. "You could have shut everything down," he said. I looked at the water and replied, "I just wanted peace." My daughter skipped stones near the shore, laughing like none of this ever happened. Karen watched from her porch across the street, silent now, realizing too late that power without truth always collapses. And the lake stayed calm, because this time it was in the right hands. A week later, the final notice came in the mail. Not for me, for the HOA. The state revoked their control charter after reviewing the footage and records. Years of abuse, years of fake power, gone with one signature. The board resigned that same night. No speeches, no excuses, just silence. The lake reflected the sky like nothing bad had ever touched it. I stood there with my family, feeling something heavy lift off my chest. I didn't fight to take anything from anyone. I fought to protect what was mine and keep my family safe. A reporter asked me if I felt proud. I thought for a second and said, I feel free. Because in this country, land still matters. Truth still matters, and no bully with a clipboard gets to rewrite history. Karen moved out 2 months later. No goodbye, no apology, just gone. And every time the sun hits that water now, I remember one simple thing. They tried to control the wrong man. Months passed, but the lesson stayed. New families moved in, rules became clear, and no one knocked on my door with fake authority again. One evening, a veteran stopped by, shook my hand and said, You reminded people what ownership really means. Watched the flag by my porch, moved with the wind, and felt that quiet. Pride you don't talk about much. Not loud, not angry, just earned. I didn't win because I shouted. I won because I stood my ground. And every time someone asks who controls that lake now, the answer is simple. That night, as the stars reflected on the lake, my daughter asked me quietly, Dad, will she ever come back? I smiled and shook my head. Not a chance. People who abuse power, they never learn until they fall. She nodded, skipping a pebble across the water. I thought about Karen, the HOA chaos, and every threat she made. Every attempt to intimidate us had backfired. I whispered to myself, freedom isn't given, it's protected. And in that moment, with the lake calm and my family safe, I realized the real inheritance wasn't just water rights. It was the strength to defend what's right, no matter how loud the bullies scream. The HOA was gone. The lake was ours. And justice, finally fully, had its quiet victory. A few weeks later, the local news ran a follow-up story. Karen's failed HOA attempts had become a cautionary tale. Interviews with neighbors praised the family who stood up to her, calling it bravery that reminded everyone of their rights. Emails poured in from veterans, single parents, and people across the state thanking me for showing that standing up doesn't have to be violent. It just has to be right. I didn't respond to most of them. I just watched my daughter play by the dock, her laughter echoing over the water. For the first time in months, the tension was gone. The lake shimmered, reflecting sunlight on its vast 2,100 acres, untouched, fully ours. And deep down, I knew this story wasn't just about water. It was about courage, truth, and the quiet power of refusing to be bullied. Karen had lost everything, but we gained more than anyone could take away. The peace of knowing justice had finally been served. End the story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing HOA stories.